So a few takeaways on fasting going into the new year. This is one of those things where if you have clientele that are like, I don't want to count calories, they're resistant to it. There's nothing that you can do to get them to track. This is one of the strategies that you could attempt. It's a simple thing. You just pick a strategy, whether it's alternate day, whether it's time restricted eating, and you say, just eat within this window, and let's see if this is something that'll work for you. You don't have to, follow macros, etc. So it is simple, right? It's not necessarily optimal in terms of meeting protein intakes, etc., but it's a simple strategy. It also appears to be equally effective at, traditional dieting. You see a spontaneous reduction of what people are eating. They spontaneously eat fewer calories. And if you read the studies closely, people don't make up for it on the non-fasting days, at least in the studies that have been reviewed so far. In the short-term studies, they appear to retain or maintain their lean body mass if they're also resistance training, right? So again, the value of your services and getting them to keep weight training. There is emerging research on things like the gut microbiome, other biohealth markers, but a lot of that stuff is still really focused in the animal research. So I wouldn't, look into it too deeply at this point. Adherence, you may be hungry on those fasting days. So that's sort of a con, just something to take into account, especially if you're training hard on those days. It may negatively impact your social life. So if you got parties, if you got events and you're on a tight window, or if you're not eating that day, that's something you've got to deal with. And because of all these reasons, there are no, best practices, for fasting. So you sort of, this one of these things that you can play with, but there's no standard best practices to follow. And of course, longer studies are needed we're all interested in not just weight loss, but longer maintenance and keeping that weight off. Okay, so that's intermittent fasting.
So Kat,
fasting
let
in
me
general,
say something
ways.
real quick.
Yeah.
Kat?
Please, please, Neal.
Yeah, so my takeaway from everything that you just said is this. There is no benefit to it over the normal, properly calorically restricted diet and weight training. There's no benefit. In fact, the detriment would be, and I like what you put in here, the negatively impacting your social life. I can promise you it'll do that, especially during the holidays, okay? And adherence is going to be difficult. There's no question. So no benefit there. That doesn't mean we're not going to talk somebody out of it, because there may be somebody that the only way they can stick to a diet is to do that. So that becomes very individual, but certainly not broad-based. That's my takeaway all the way.
Absolutely. That's the biggest takeaway, is not better than any other traditional dieting or other modes that may be more optimal in terms of protein intakes, etc. But like you said, it's, for some people, it's simple and it's the only thing they can stick to. Yeah. So good. That's a good recap.